On paper, a duo of Giannis Antetokounmpo and Damian Lillard should be nearly unstoppable, no matter the circumstances. But despite the impressive numbers, that hasn't exactly been the case for the team as a whole. For instance, Dame and Giannis are the highest scoring duo in basketball, putting up 56.4 points per night. Giannis is quietly having one of the best seasons in league history, flying under the radar while putting up 30.9 points, 12 rebounds, 5.8 assists, and 1.2 blocks per game on a ridiculous 60% shooting. Meanwhile, Dame has bounced back himself, averaging 25.5 points and 7.1 assists on solid shooting splits of 45% from the field and 37% from deep. On paper, they might have the best duo in basketball, but the simple statistics don't tell the whole story. Right now, they are simply not in the same conversation as teams like Oklahoma City, Boston, or Cleveland. And if they don't make these key adjustments before the playoffs begin, I'm telling you right now, they won't stand a chance against any of these teams. Right now, when I look at the NBA's true inner circle contenders, I see 5 teams, and the Bucks right now aren't one of them. Those 5 teams play winning basketball, plain and simple. In the Eastern Conference, the only real contenders in my mind right now is Cleveland and Boston, and out west, it's Oklahoma City, Denver, and the Lakers. What sets these teams apart is their level of seriousness on both ends. Their execution, attention to detail, and commitment to doing all the little things that win games. That's exactly what this Bucks team is missing. Milwaukee simply aren't bought in on doing the so-called 1%ers every single night. These are the little hustle plays that don't show up in the stat sheet and are really hard to do. Things like securing defensive rebounds, preventing easy transition buckets, and staying locked in when you're guarding off ball so opponents don't get wide open threes or cuts to the basket. Doing the 1%ers by no means is not fun or easy, but if you want to win the championship, they are non-negotiable. And when you break down Milwaukee's weaknesses, these are their weaknesses. Against the Cavaliers, Cleveland ran all over them, racking up 24 easy fast break points. Time and time again, the Bucks would get a stop on defense, but fail to secure that rebound, giving up extra possessions. When you have to defend twice against the best offense in basketball, it is absolutely exhausting, and it puts you at a major disadvantage. And unfortunately for Milwaukee, they do this to themselves almost every game. What made this loss to Cleveland even worse, though, was how the Cavs did not play a good game. No one scored more than 20 points, and both Donovan Mitchell and Darius Garland struggled with their off-the-dribble threes, missing shots they would usually make. But even on a night where their opponent wasn't making shots, Milwaukee still could not capitalize because they gave Cleveland so many easy looks. Then the second key area where the Bucks struggle with the 1%ers is boxing out. Cleveland again exposed this weakness, crashing the offensive glass for 13 offensive rebounds, which then led to 17 second chance points. What's frustrating for the Bucks is how the Cavs weren't even particularly efficient when they got these offensive rebounds, but when you give up 13 of them, they're bound to capitalize. And just to put that into perspective, the Bucks only lost this game by 12. If they had simply just boxed out a little better, this would have been a much tighter contest. But rebounding is not the only reason the Bucks keep losing these big-time games. The third area where the Bucks struggle with the 1%ers is simply taking care of the basketball. On the season, the Bucks rank 9th for turnovers per game. Not bad overall, but in the big games, their decision-making seemingly falls apart. Against Cleveland, they coughed up 18 turnovers, and in their recent loss to Indiana, they had 15. When you're facing top-tier competition, you cannot afford to give them extra opportunities because they will punish you on them. But that's exactly what Milwaukee keeps doing, handing opponents extra chances to beat them with careless mistakes. If the Bucks want to be taken serious as true title contenders, this is a massive area they have to clean up. The best teams in the league consistently do these little things at the highest level, and right now, the Bucks are simply not there. The NBA's best teams are also the ones excelling in these 1%er areas. Take turnovers for example. The Thunder, Cavs, and Celtics all rank in the top 5 for limiting opponents' points off turnovers, while the Lakers are in the top 10. When it comes to giving up second chance points, Cleveland and Boston are among the league's best, and with transition defense, the Cavs, Celtics, and Thunder all rank in the top 11, each boasting at least an above average ability to limit fast break points. These are exactly the areas where Milwaukee falls short. If they want to compete with the NBA's elite, they are going to have to tighten up these areas of their game, because right now, they are not at that elite level. I do think there could be a potential fix for these issues, one that could help Milwaukee improve in these areas. Now, I don't like singling players out, but for me, a change needs to be made in the starting 5 to boost the team's commitment to the 1%ers, and that change is Taurean Prince. There's no denying Prince's ability to stretch the floor and knock down threes at an impressive rate, but outside of that, he really doesn't bring this team much on the defensive side of the floor. Against Cleveland, Max Strus absolutely torched him. Prince kept losing track of him, allowing easy swing passes for open threes. Strus would end up making the Bucks pay, dropping 17 points on 54% shooting, including 5 of 9 from deep. Prince's on-ball defense is passable, but his off-ball defense is nowhere near good enough. The perfect example, the final possession of the Pacers game. Indiana ran their signature football-style play, sprinting down the court to make it tough for Milwaukee to foul them. Prince was assigned to Tyrese Halliburton, which was already a questionable decision in my mind, but what happened next was far worse. Halliburton ran through 2 screens from Nesmith and Siakam, but Prince didn't even bother to follow him, and did not call for a switch, leaving Giannis in a brutal 2-on-1 situation where he ends up fouling Halliburton for the win. And what makes this even worse is how Miles Turner's wide open under the basket, as Giannis was put in a seemingly impossible situation. Then in the post-game interview, Doc Rivers said that there should not have been a switch on that play, and he would end up blaming the coaching staff for not having the players properly prepared for the moment. However, this is a blatant error, as you left their best player open for pretty much that entire possession. But the thing is with Prince, that is not a one-time mistake. These kinds of breakdowns happen far too often, and especially when they happen in crunch time, it is devastating. If the Bucks want to clean up these areas, it might be time to reconsider Prince's starting role. Playing Taurean Prince at the 2 also does not suit his skill set, as he's simply not quick enough to keep up with these shooting guards and even point guards at times, as he's meant to be played at the 3. That is why I'd make the change to the starting lineup, reinserting Gary Trent Jr. Trent Jr. has been quietly excellent for the Bucks on both ends, as he's a natural shooting guard. Swapping him in for Prince would give the Bucks a more mobile, active defense, while not sacrificing any elite floor spacing. But that being said, there are some unavoidable realities with this team. Age and overall foot speed do present some challenges when it comes to closing out to shooters and rotating against teams like Cleveland and Boston, who constantly make extra passes. Still, despite those limitations, I believe the Bucks are fully capable of playing solid defense against the league's best, if they simply better commit to the 1%ers. Boxing out, sprinting back in transition, and limiting turnovers would instantly make them a better defensive unit overnight. And we actually saw this earlier in the season when they made their push through the NBA Cup tournament. During that time, their rebounding was at its best, and as a result, they had one of the best defenses in the league. When I watch this team, it's clear that they need to trim the fat in a couple of areas, and if they do so, that could turn their season around. The real issue though, they have not shown any progress in fixing these weaknesses all season long, and at this point, I'm not sure if they will. But if they start playing with a better defensive intensity, paying attention to the margins and the details, it could make all the difference. But defense is not this team's only issue, as their offensive approach simply doesn't optimize the kind of team that they are. In today's NBA, teams usually fall into one of 2 categories: size teams or speed teams. And the Bucks are unquestionably a size team. With Lopez, Giannis, and now Kyle Kuzma all in the starting 5, they have a massive front court. Yet, they constantly try and play like a speed team instead. Rather than using their extra size advantage to dominate the paint, they rely far too much on driving kick threes, which simply doesn't suit their personnel. Why have Giannis driving just to kick it out when he could be bullying his way to the basket drawing fouls, and putting opponents in foul trouble. If the Bucks would just lean into their size more, they would be a nightmare to defend. And that's one of the things I love about this team. When they're at their best, it's how effective they are at making interior passes. The Giannis Brook pick and roll is one of my favorite actions that they run, and when Bobby Portis is available, he thrives as a recipient of the Giannis drop-off passes in the dunker spot. But outside of their big man play, another issue is how they're using Damian Lillard, because it could be a whole lot better. With Giannis on the floor, a lot of fans and media alike want to see them run pick and roll after pick and roll. But in reality, that often hurts the team more than it helps. When Giannis sets a screen for Dame, it invites teams to trap Lillard, since Giannis isn't a great perimeter shooter, as defenses do not have to respect him from outside, as they simply just bring extra help on the back door, shutting down any advantage Milwaukee was trying to create. In my opinion, a better way to use Dame would be to let him operate in isolation a lot more, rather than constantly running screens that invite double teams. Even better, Milwaukee could take advantage of Giannis as an off-ball cutter, a role that would force defenses to collapse on him while Dame has the ball, giving him more room to operate. Right now, Milwaukee isn't maximizing Dame's skill set, and oftentimes he's not even getting enough shots, as this is something they will need to adjust. But at the end of the day, the biggest reason this team has been so inconsistent this season isn't their offensive approach. It's their lack of consistent effort on the defensive end. The little things, the 1%ers, is what is holding this team back. Yes, tweaking the offense could help, but if they don't clean up their defensive issues and commit to playing harder, that's what will ultimately cost them in the postseason against teams like the Cavaliers and Celtics. But the Bucks are not the only contenders with major goals for the rest of the season. And if you want to see what goal I have set for every other title contender, you can watch that breakdown right now.